We are live on Facebook, everyone. Welcome to this week's Love Seat. I'm here with the amazing Katerina Daniel, and I am just as you're arriving, I'm going to share our video into the Revolutionary Woman group, which involves a little technical stuff. So you'll see my eyes going all over the place. Copy the code. Oh gosh, and I love how Facebook updates things on the fly. So to the group. And then I need to tag someone and then we'll be ready to go.
No problem.
All right, here we go. That is interesting. It's just done something that it's never done before. Okay, bear with us, everyone, because I need to reshare again. Luckily, nobody's here. So that's cool. And find my page again. Anybody who does live video on Facebook probably has some clue about what I'm doing right now. Okay, here we go. This is what's going to work. She says famously. Okay. All right, here, this is going to work. This is going to work. I'm posting it in. And all right. We are live in the correct place. Woo! And it only took 2 minutes. Okay, welcome everyone to the Love Seat. I am Morna Haist, the founder of Revolutionary Woman Global, and I'm joined today by the amazing Katerina Daniel. Hey, Katerina.
Hi, Morna.
Hi. I'm going to introduce you. You are an executive leader with the Government of Canada, and your experience has spanned theology and pastoral ministry in a church setting. I'm so interested in that. We're going to go there. Radio broadcasting, I didn't know that. That is also so cool. To communications and strategic business consulting. Your government career has been most rewarding when you're able to connect with stakeholders, other governments and partners through engagement and partnership development. You've worked with Indigenous communities throughout Canada and have a passion for bringing diverse voices to the table. Absolutely, we're also going to go there. And policy and program development and creating spaces for people to co-create new ways of doing things. You're a sought out, I love how you've got she, but I'm saying you, the old third person versus person. Sought out to lead transformational or change-related efforts, and has often been asked to lead challenging files. I love that, files where there isn't a clear path forward, a nod to your extreme comfort in ambiguous situations and environments. Yeah, we're going to start there. When you're not working your day job, you're hanging out with your partner and your 2 dogs who apparently are going to make their presence known during this.
They probably will, yes. I expect so.
And your adult sons and teenage sons. Amazing. Oh, and I'm really curious that you put your love of art on hold and happily rediscovering many new expressions of creativity. That's amazing, Katerina. Welcome. I feel so privileged that you're joining us in the Love Seat today. And I want to begin by maybe in an unusual place, but I think leadership is going to be the flavor of our conversation. And actually, the question I want to begin with is, how did you cultivate an extreme comfort in ambiguous environments? and why is this important? Why is this an important skill in our leadership repertoire?
I didn't intentionally cultivate it. I think the universe... to be very honest, I think I fought it for a long time and was very angry in ambiguous situations and frustrated, and was just a very sad, in a sad place for a while because of things not being the way that I thought they were supposed to be. My life wasn't working out the way that I thought it was supposed to. And I wish I knew what was the change, what triggered the new way of seeing things, but I do know this. I know that the universe never really gave up on me, and repeatedly put the same situations in my path until I saw things differently. So
True story. I think yeah.
that's true story. Yeah, that's how it
Yeah.
worked out. And eventually, through kind of hitting the hardest, the most sad parts of my life, hitting moments of just real despair, I had to hold on to some faith that other people had and hope that other people had, who kept saying things to me that I guess somewhere inside of me gave me hope. And so I hung on to those moments, and there's no aha. It just eventually I saw beautiful things emerge out of total ambiguity. And now that's kind of my gift. Why it's important is because I actually think that's just the reality we live in. We live in constant ambiguity, but and I think if there's a part of human nature that looks to create structure where there none exists, to sort it out, to rationalize things and create the systems that we see. But the real beauty is actually in the ambiguity. The real opportunity is in the ambiguity. The creative power is in the ambiguity. It's in the depths of not knowing what's next, is where things emerge that are beautiful and transformational.
Yeah, that is just 100% echoes my own experience and parts of my life journey, and particularly in the leadership development space. And I think you're 100% correct in terms of it being part of our human design, although I'm not necessarily going to say that it's intrinsically female. I think it's perhaps more these, many of the structures that we have are more sort of male-led structures, not looking at that through male and female. Okay, I'm not going to go there because that's a whole other piece that I could go down. We'll go down there in 10 minutes. We'll go down that road in 10 minutes. But I think just looking at the evolution of ourselves as a species, particularly like coming out of the Industrial Revolution, where we really actually had a need as a species to organize, to structure. There's so much more predictability in those types of systems. And our world has really moved on from that in so many respects. And I know for me, and so much of the leadership work that I've done over the years, particularly in organizational settings, there is this desire or to want to systematize, to control, to project. And what I've been noticing, particularly over the last 10 years, is that way just is working less and less and less. And I think that we are being asked as a species to develop these qualities, and they're uncomfortable. So I want to speak about that for a moment, because I think there's also a conditioning that we may have, that we need to seek comfort, that when it feels good, it's right, that and I notice for myself, particularly doing a lot of consensus-based work, that sometimes when it gets uncomfortable is the moment where people will grasp for the old solution or the old way. What are your comments on that?
So it's very rare that I go to the old way. And I understand the inclination. To me, and I go back to my kind of where I started in theology of all places, and Christian theology, and the most moving part of my studies was really understanding this concept of Paschal Mystery, which is the dying and rising. And it's been an evolution of understanding what Paschal Mystery is and what dying and rising really is. And so I love that the earth renews itself regularly, that we have cycles of renewal, and that renewal presents itself in so many ways. I work in policy cycles, and political cycles provide us with opportunities to renew, to refresh, to open our eyes, and to transform into something new if we take the moment to do it. So I guess that's the only reason I don't often go the old, is because I think all these opportunities continually present themselves for us to recreate, to rise up into something new. In fact, every breath is a renewal. So we as humans are constantly renewing. We think about our ecosystems and how we are renewing ourselves constantly, how growth happens, how we fight disease. It's all renewal. So to me, it's kind of the natural flow of humanity, of organisms, of the earth, of the universe, is just constant renewal. We may want one thing, but the reality of nature is taking us in a different direction.
I just am having yes, 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 yes as you speak. And what I'm curious about is your feelings around how do I want to position this? I guess what I want to say is that I think if we were creating organizational structures based on nature, they might look a little bit different from what we've created. And so I guess that's the question I really have for you is how do you find this way of being showing up in your organization and the systems that you're in? And well, I got to go there. And yeah.
Yeah. So people, anyone who watches this who knows me well knows that I often feel like a square peg in the round hole of a system. However, I have persevered because I think that the square pegs are necessary, and somehow I find other square pegs, and that we will create a space that's meant for renewal and refreshing. And I actually think there's a generation of people coming through the system who have more flexibility, who maybe were raised with more ambiguity, and are able to hold multiple truths at the same time, even conflicting truths at the same time. So I really am quite attracted to working with younger people often because I find they're still flexible in their thinking and haven't yet settled into a rhythm that they want to repeat as much as they are open to the renewal. So how do it is not a natural fit for me in a structure like the bureaucracy. There are many things I believe very strongly in the system as it exists for now, in that I think people are there to do the best for my country and for the people of this country. I think it needs more new life breathed into it all the time. And I have faith in those who keep coming in looking to bring that new life and refresh. The system is a system. I don't think it's perfect, of course, for many reasons, but I'm not necessarily a system person. I'm a transformation person. So I've just learned in that structure where I have abilities to influence, where I can make adjustments, where I can kind of breathe into a space and take up a little bit more room. I often think of a yoga pose that's so hard to hold, it like yin yoga. You get to a pose and it hurts, and then suddenly you breathe into it and the struggle's gone. So I look for those spaces within the system.
Wow. I'm just taking a moment here to take in what you just said. Yeah, I'm really curious about this idea of holding multiple truths at the same time. And through the lens of the work I do, I would say that is I don't want to use the word advanced practice because I don't want to categorize us in those ways. What I want to say about it is that I believe it's an essential way of being that is required for us to cultivate on the planet right now, is the ability to hold multiple truths at the same time in societies that tend towards the binary, or a position life in the binary. It's either this or it's that. This is right, this is wrong. This political view is correct, this one is wrong. This person is a bad person, this person is a good person, when all of these pieces have shades of one another within them. How do we, this is a really big question to ask, and I'm just asking for a friend. How do we cultivate that? And actually, maybe there's a different question that I'd love us to explore is, what can be done when we encounter binary thinking? when we can ourselves see the multiple truths within that binary thinking?
I usually start by digging more into the human elements rather than maybe what we think of as the frame or the system. So I often find that relation, in the interaction of relation, is where I can connect with people. Because if we can cultivate empathy and understanding in each other, suddenly even the person who I maybe didn't connect with or appreciate is human in many ways, and humans are related to me and I relate to them, and I can't help but relate to them. So that often is where I go. I've had lots of experience, like initial experiences of people that are very off-putting, only to find later on that I adore them so much when I actually understand who they are and maybe where that experience of them came from. And so, I mean, I don't know if I'm unique in that. I doubt it. I just think that I'm open to being wrong.
You are. I'm trying to find my mic. Yeah. I'm gonna point that out in a second. Get my mic out of my head. Hang on.
I guess I'm open to being wrong more than I'm stuck on being right. So how I have to lead by example. I have to I try to appeal to empathy and humanity in each of us, and I try to develop relationships. And that's, to me, the way that I develop the strongest openings for the multiple truths, for all the differences to be held, the diversity of views to be brought together.
Yeah. Oh, yes, and yes. Yeah, I will say, through the lens of my own work as an adult development practitioner, that the skills you're talking about are pretty rare. And it's interesting that so many of the environments we're in, even like social media environments, the algorithms are not geared towards this way of being and thinking. They're geared towards presenting things in this black and white way. And the ability to really enter into a relationship with another human and understand where their viewpoints have come from, and actually seek that shared understanding, or what's possible when, and this sort of is one thing that I learned and relearned kind of over and over again in a consensus environment, where the goal was not assimilation, it was co-creation, which are two very different ways of coming into something. Yeah. And to me, a true consensus environment or co-creative environment is an environment that, first of all, values values. So if I totally value your values, then I'm not attempting to indoctrinate you into. I always love, and I'm so super curious about ideas around that organizations position things like shared values.
I will tell you a quick story about that.
Please.
It's very entertaining to me still. So part of my community involvement is that I have been on the executive of our local minor hockey association because my kids have come through the system. And so, being a good hockey mom and citizen of the community, I wanted to help. So I'm a brown woman who is sitting in a group of typically white men when I started on the executives. Having my voice heard was certainly not easy. And often it took another person, usually a white man, repeating my words and the same sentiments for everyone to say, "Oh, great idea." So
fantastic original idea. Yes. Yeah.
But recently it was during the pandemic experience and trying to reopen some of what we were doing. And we were trying to make some decisions on how to proceed as an association. And I said to this group of people who were clearly very much head in this like weeds, I said, can we just take a step back and talk about our shared values and the values that we're using to make these decisions, maybe establish some principles. I think I said it 3 times. And people ignored it like it never was said. Someone messaged me and said, "You're saying exactly what it needs to be said, but they're not gonna go there." So yes, I think systems, I find it very difficult to just work from values because values are somewhat ambiguous, right? Like there's a relational element to values, whereas rules or a black and white decision is easy for people either to adhere to or reject. It's like positional.
Yeah, yes, and yeah, it's so interesting. Again, sort of going back to the consensus environment that I've been in, which definitely had guiding policies. And I think the difference in those guiding policies is that they were open for influence, and there was a recognition in the organization that those policies only ever represented a moment in time of that particular group in a particular. And I think that what I understood over time is that it almost the process of co-creating that policy is more important than the thing that ends up getting made.
Yes.
The product. Yeah, the process is the product in a way.
Yes.
And that's really one thing that I really learned and miss being in a truly co-creative consensus environment, which of course is aspirational, and things on the ground don't necessarily look like the fantasy in my head. But when you're attempting to actually value each person and value their views, then the policy is only ever a guide as well. And so, whereas I think that the whole rule-based thing is, what do I want to say about it? I actually, the words that are coming up are a bit of a cop-out, but I get it, because, and whose rules are they? Sorry.
Hence the system liking it.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
if you buy into the system, it's easy to buy in the rules because they serve the system. So it's, that's, I think, why. And I don't know, I would tend to disagree. That's not a cop-out as much as it's a simplified way of approaching things, perhaps, that is easier for a lot of people to digest. And I guess that's where I go back to the ambiguity of, that's not what I subscribe to, those types of ways of being. But I understand the appeal of it for folks who definitely don't understand my way of being. Don't know. I often think I'm speaking another language when I talk about values and different ways of co-creating spaces and coming together to transform something. And I guess just when I talk about innovation, it's really about imagining something that's never been in a human way, not necessarily technology. So, to me, a lot of the stuff is interesting only in the way that humans can grow from the use of it, or how it enables humans to grow and expand.
Oh, yeah. Oof. So take me back, and I see you here, Ellen. Hello, darling. And if anyone else is watching, let us know you're here. Yeah, she just said yes, the process is the product. And actually, I want to riff off that a little bit, because it just is so at the heart of what I believe as a human, that if I think of an organizational structure, and Amanda's here as well. Your fan club's here, Katerina. It's brilliant. Great. Love it. That, and again, coming back to that, the consensus organization, one of the fundamental philosophies in that organization was and is that the relationship trumps everything, that the relationship is at the core. And actually much of that comes, so you can all probably hear, and I think most people in my community know that I'm not Canadian born, I'm from New Zealand, and I worked in a bicultural partnership in New Zealand for many years. I have a very deep relationship with the Indigenous population of New Zealand and Māori culture. And in Māori culture, in a Māori hui, which is the name for a meeting, we do whakawhanangatanga, which you've had a small taste of. And that process is the process of preferencing the human over and above any work that might need to occur, and preferencing the whole, I want to say the wholeality, which is a word that I just made up, but an invitation to that quality of relationship. And really the premise there is that everything else takes care of itself from that place. And I think in my criticism, I think of many of our many of the practices that we have in our organizations, particularly meeting practices, is that, to me, meetings are at the heart of any organization. Like they're where the humans come together in relationship to figure something out. Yeah. But more often than not, when I encounter organizational meetings, they're okay. And then the next,
kind of like what's happened with the pandemic for that reason. Because of who I am, I've never really felt that great comfortable in a corporate environment, and working from home, I feel like even though we have to do it through the computer virtual setting, I feel so much more connected to the people I work with in different ways. And I think it's because the structure of that system, the physical structure of the system's gone. We're in our home. So immediately it takes a lot of that weird way of separating home life, who I am at home, work life, out of the picture. And also, I have so many more natural bilateral conversations like this that are just two human beings connecting. We talk business, we get things done, but in the end, like, how are you is a much more easier way of starting things. And, tell me about yourself. Are you working from home? Where are you? Just these natural bits of conversation that maybe I wouldn't have gone through if I was sitting across from somebody in a suit, in a boardroom. It's a different way of interacting. So I know a lot of people lament. On cue. Both Amanda and Elaine can appreciate that moment. People lament about the loss of the human interaction, but I do also, I'm so grateful for the ability to connect with people in a deeper way, in a way that is more human. Even though I don't get to sit next to them, I do feel like this communication is more human. And I mean, both Amanda and Elaine, I worked with the two of them for a year, and I didn't work with them face to face. We were virtual the entire time. And the connections that we made they're more human than a lot of connections I've made working with people in a building for 10 years. So I think there's something there, and, hopefully we will uncover what that is. If those of us who push a little bit to see like what has happened to humans in this way of interacting.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for saying all of that. And Amanda saying copper's chiming in as needed. That's cool. Yeah, look, I have exactly the same experience. My work has been actually virtual for a while, and I really, at the beginning of kind of moving to North America and taking more and more of my work online, it's like, oh, how can I bring the humanness to it? And I've been experimenting in that space, and I've had some of the deepest, richest, most intimate human interactions in this forum. Absolutely. And, the act of bringing the human into the room is such a transformational act in and of itself. So I want to, before we wind up, we've got a few more minutes because we started a little over. I want to come back to what you said at the beginning, and I wanted to look it up because I don't know what it is. What is the Paschal Mystery?
Oh, the Paschal Mystery, yes.
He ends with that, but
it's a theological term, and I assume other Christian denominations refer to it. But in Roman Catholicism, we talk about the Paschal Mystery in terms of kind of the Easter mystery, the dying and rising of Jesus, as being the Paschal Mystery. This is the biggest miracle of all was this. And then the gift of that is what Roman Catholics experience as Holy Communion. So that also is a dying and rising, where we die individually and rise as a community, as a whole body of believers. So in the Christian context, in the Roman Catholic context, I'm not a practicing Roman Catholic anymore, disclaimer, full disclosure. But yeah, and that practice, that's very much, it's integral to the faith, but it's not really well understood because it's quite ambiguous, and really it's more about community. Like individual, putting aside the individual in a lot of ways and letting our egos die a little bit to rise to something bigger and stronger. So there's a lot of depth there that is untapped because it doesn't serve the binary brain very well, but it's really rich stuff.
Oh, that's so interesting. So can you speak just for a moment on why it's called a mystery? Is that in direct relationship to the mystery of why this occurred?
Yes, the mystery is the dying and the rising. So that this incredible person, this leader, this icon of the faith died and then came back to teach the most incredible lessons really of life that all faiths share in the core of who we are, right?
Yeah.
So that's the mystery of it. And then the mystery is also that we re-experience that as humans regularly, that when we die, the mystery is there's new life always on the other side. So, it's, again, we as humans tend to look at life as birth and death and everything in between, but the Paschal Mystery says, no, it's life and death and life and death and life and death. And that the cycle is real. So I think that's what's mysterious about it. It's very non-binary. It's very much just nature renewal.
Well, it's very much just nature, and there's two threads that I'm going to pick up to kind of round us out and say that again. Like I think I've mentioned consensus many times on this conversation, and I feel an element of that mystery in that process because to truly co-create, there definitely needs to be that death of whatever is being tightly clung on to, in defense of this is the way to go forward. And that can be so challenging to loosen the grip on our own beliefs in that way, so challenging. And what I know for sure is that in a very mysterious way, I'm trying to bring the mystery in and maybe tie two things together that aren't tied together, but what ends up being co-created is true innovation, because it never could have been imagined by one person. It never could have, it needed this particular configuration of difference for this newness to emerge. And I'm actually getting a whole body chill because for me, I believe that is the thing we need on the planet more than anything else, because we've really reached a point as a species where there's no white knight on the horse riding in to save us, even though we keep kind of entering into this, or this person, or this idea, or this government, or this organization, or this. It's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us figuring this out together. And so it's one of the reasons why I'm obsessed with bringing diverse people together in conversation, because I believe it's one of the most transformative things we can do. And then, no, I'm not updating Zoom right now. Stop. Okay, I am feeling that moment where I feel a little blown away and kind of fuzzy by so many of the things you've said, which I think is amazing. And I want to actually point that out to folks as something to become really familiar with and comfortable with, and sit more in fuzziness and sit more in not quite understanding what someone has said before coming to the, oh, I know what this is. Oh, I understand this person. Oh, all of the things that we do, to allow that moment of freshness. And oh man, such a gift speaking with you, Katerina.
Thank you.
In closing, yes. In closing, what message would you have to someone who may be in an organization that is in a period of transformation and they feel like, I was going to say, they don't know what's going on, they're uncomfortable, they're stuck? What would you say to that person who might be watching us right now?
Well, first of all, I think almost all systems are currently under a certain amount of transformation. And there's significant changes happening in systems and organizations around the world. And it's causing disruptions. So what you're feeling is normal. And if you need to make sense of it, there are lots of great models to make sense of, what we experience as chaos. And it's not chaos. It's just a whole bunch of complexity coming together. But as humans, I don't think that we can be comfortable with that. And it's almost like it's okay to be uncomfortable with the discomfort. It's okay. But fighting it actually makes it worse and doesn't help you see the possibilities on the other side of it. That moment that you can just sit and say, this is total chaos and I'm not sure I like this and I don't see what's happening, but I know, I have faith that something good is going to come on the other side of this. And it sounds so cheesy now that it comes out of my mouth, but anyway, it's a knowing, and it's not just the belief, it's actually a knowing, but it takes a lot of sitting in discomfort and ambiguity to get there. So it's like a muscle.
Yes. It is so like a muscle. And I will just underscore that because I now see it. And this is a product of kind of being in these consensus environments, and also noticing my own body responses. I've really learned, and of course, like all of us, I have a varying relationship to this depending on all kinds of things, to signal that not knowing, and that to know that when I'm actually feeling that discomfort, that it is a signal to that something amazing is going to happen.
Yes. And look for the leader who believes that. And if there isn't a leader who believes that in your organization, find a new organization. Because it's worth it.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Katerina. Thank you for joining me in
Morna.
the love seat. And folks, if you were watching us today and you've got thoughts and feedback, then feel free to drop us a note in the comments. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I am going to end the live stream and say thank you so much, but stay here because
I will. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Bye, everyone. That was the love seat.